Thankfully, the area seemed clear for the moment. "Impressive, Jedi," the gatekeeper said, a smile creeping across his face. "Now allow me to impart some knowledge to you, a reward, if you will, for getting this far." Marius felt the force course through him as the gatekeeper reached out. The Jedi must feel the force not only around him, but within. It brings us strength, courage, and resilience in times of need. Use it as an extension of your own body. Allow it to guide you and your actions, and it will serve you well. Marius breathed deeply, letting the knowledge of the gatekeeper wash over him. It calmed his mind, the words bringing clarity to his understanding of the Force. Suddenly, he winced, the feeling bringing him out of the meditative state, a disturbance in the Force. "You must hurry," the gatekeeper said, turning to look at the temple in the distance. "I fear Malfax is close to uncovering the temple's secrets." Marius nodded and set off towards the temple. As he made his way down the dirt path, through a group of trees and round a corner, he could see the temple resting on the summit of a steep cliff. A glimmering waterfall crashed from the temple grounds and into a deep chasm separating Marius from the trail up to the temple. Spanning the chasm was a tall arched bridge of wooden beams, a sturdy-looking but primitive structure, met at each end by a rude trail. At the near side of the bridge, a pair of one-horned Advos mercenaries stood guard, with another set on the far side. Marius had to find some way across the bridge to reach the temple. He clutched his side and found his previous wounds were already crudely bandaged, but the memories of being brought to the brink so quickly were still fresh. He chose not to engage the mercenaries, in conversation or otherwise, instead looking for an alternative way across. Making his way through the trees surrounding the path and the gorge, he emerged at the edge out of sight of the mercenaries. Below, the water cascaded over rocks, but he could see a way down, and possibly across the gorge, if he could use the rocks as stepping stones to cross unseen. Unfortunately, the climb down to the rocks was just too treacherous. After spending some time trying to find a way down, Marius gave up, each attempt proving unfruitful and tiring in equal measure. As he stood at the gorge edge, stumped, he noticed a long vine trailing from a tree across the gorge, down into the water below. Extending his hand, he called to the vine with the force. The vine flapped lazily in the cool mountain breeze, the force seemingly failing Marius. Frustrated in knowing every setback put his master closer to danger, Marius tapped into something primal within, a hatred for those who would cause his master harm. The vine launched through the air and into Marius's outstretched hand. Using it, he swung across to the opposite edge of the gorge and used the vine to ascend up and onto the ledge on the other side. He made his way through the trees and came across the path leading up to the temple. The mercenaries were still preoccupied with guarding the bridge and didn't notice Marius as he exited the cover of the trees. The path ended at a winding staircase up the mountainside. Taking one last look back at the bridge, Marius climbed the staircase up the mountain as it zigzagged to the plateau above. The temple seemed even larger as he approached. Its stone arches and pillars were all crowned with snow, but a broad stone plaza before the entrance was lit by the warm spring sun. Dozing in the sunlight was a small pack of 3 native predators, large 4-legged mammals with powerful jaws and fangs. One stirred in its slumber, jostling a second, and suddenly there was snarling, spitting, roaring, and a crunch of bone and blood. Now there were only 2. Clearly these animals were driven mad by the dark side of the Force. Marius approached cautiously. The 2 remaining animals had settled to bask in the sun by the entrance to the temple. There was no way he could sneak past them. The hairs on Marius's neck began to prick up. He wheeled around to see another of the beasts stalking him from behind. As it drew closer, it let out a snarl, alerting the other 2 to its newfound prey. Not missing a beat, Marius darted forwards towards the single wolf as it approached from the staircase he had just climbed. He leapt into the air, aiming a flying kick towards the wolf. His foot caught the creature on its nose, sending it flying back over itself and tumbling down the flight of stairs. It crashed with a sickening thud to a small landing at the bottom of a short set of stairs, its lifeless body battered and bruised from the fall. Marius turned to see the other two wolves charging towards him. He manoeuvred into an attack stance, his legs apart and his fists raised, ready to strike. Showing no sign of fear, the rabid wolves bounded forwards and into Marius's awaiting attack. Dodging the first of the wolves as it lunged, Marius converted the beast's movement into a throw, sending the wolf howling down the stairs after its fallen brother. Its body landed with a squelch, the impact of the fall shattering bones, and the creature let out a final yelp before slumping to the ground, dead. The final wolf let out a snarl and pounced, grabbing Marius's wrist with its sharp yellow teeth, shaking its clenched jaw back and forth. The fangs ripped through the Jedi's robes and punctured into his arm before letting go, crouching low, ready for the next attack. His vision blurred. Marius drew upon all his hatred, using the darkness to fuel his strength. He landed a punch to the wolf's jaw, then grasped the fur on its back, spinning and flinging the final attacker down the staircase. It bounced down every step before crumpling on top of its brother's corpses. There was no getting up from that. The rage subsiding, Marius felt faint as the blood seeped through his already tarnished robes. He gingerly peeled back the blood-soaked sleeve to reveal a nasty bite mark. There was not much he could do without proper medical equipment. He began searching the area around the temple entrance to find anything to help heal his wounds. His search came up dry, and he turned his attentions to finding anything that might help him in the upcoming fight. In the plaza lay a cylindrical object. On closer inspection, it appeared to be a very high-quality pipe bomb left behind by a careless mercenary. Its casing was slightly worn by the elements, and the occasional tooth mark made by a foolhardy wolf, no doubt. Marius picked up the pipe bomb and hung it from his belt. Looking around, he spied a tree in a corner of the courtyard. He was of course aware of the great tree that grew at the heart of the Jedi Temple, and wondered if this tree was of the same species. A unity tree, known to be a powerful conduit for force energy. As he approached, he could see the familiar fan-like leaves of the unity tree dotted around the branches. The tree was old, ancient even, but its power was waning as the stench of the dark side emanated from the temple's walls. Whatever Malefax was doing clouded everything in a haze of darkness, even affecting Marius's judgment as he recalled the emotions of hatred that had risen in him already in this journey. Marius sat in front of the unity tree and meditated, recovering his strength. As he opened his mind to the force, it was almost as if a tether of force energy extended from the unity tree and engulfed Marius. The energy was pure in the light side of the force, the light washing over Marius, his wounds closing and knitting the skin back together. As he felt the healing energy grow, it extended to his mind, the strain of the past encounters leaving him. Images flashed through Marius's head. An angry, red-skinned Deveronian, pages flying, an Adfo's mercenary standing over Master Turin, another mercenary walking through the ring corridors. The vision left Marius determined and calm, ready to face his enemy. He opened his eyes to see the last of the unity tree's leaves fall from its branches, and felt its life force draining to him. "Return to the force," Marius whispered, bowing his head and standing, feeling rejuvenated through the tree's sacrifice. With a new hope in his heart, he approached the main entrance. He heard a strangled scream from within the temple. Apparently, Master Turin was still alive. Peering within, Marius saw a small antechamber that opened to side chambers to the left and right, and widened into a large assembly hall deeper within, lit by brilliant shafts of sunlight from above. Master Turin lay against a pillar within the assembly hall, while a horned Adfo's mercenary stood over her with a blaster. Marius could hear shouting and screaming from a chamber to the right. "Nothing," the voice cried. "The archive is empty. Just a bunch of useless scrolls and tablets. Where is the holocron?" A red-skinned figure with two sharp horns on his forehead, a Deveronian, strode into view and pointed a wicked, serrated sword at Master Turin. Malefax, Marius presumed. "Tell me, or I'll skin you alive," Malefax roared. Then he turned and stormed back to the archive, from which Marius heard more screams and crashing. He seemed unhinged, and waves of anger and fear and hatred boiled off him, permeating the temple. No one seemed to have noticed Marius yet. Sneaking through the temple, Marius could see the first mercenary in a room off the antechamber. Waiting for him behind a pillar, he carefully positioned himself to move around it as the guards sauntered through. Picking up a piece of nearby rubble, Marius aimed carefully and threw it out the door to the plaza. It bounced and clattered down the stairs and crunched to a halt outside the entrance. "What's that?" the advos muttered, spinning around and moving cautiously towards the entrance. Outside rang the howls of more wolves, no doubt having found the mangled corpses on the mountain staircase, out for revenge. "Oh, Sifspit, it's more of them beasts. Give me an hand. I ain't facing them by myself," he shouted down the corridor to the other mercenary guarding Master Turin. "Right," said the second advos. "This little Jedi ain't going nowhere anyways." The two met at the entrance before moving out towards the plaza. Moments later, blaster fire, yelling, and howls erupted from outside. "That should keep them busy for a while," Marius smirked. Continuing to stay hidden, he made his way up the staircase on the assembly hall and to a pillar outside the archive room Malefax was currently routing through. Reaching out with the force, Marius attempted to gauge when Malefax might leave the room. His anger and hatred clouded his movements, a raging storm obscuring everything about him. "Where is it? Where is it?" he chanted, the crashes and bangs growing more violent, but unceasing. For the moment he was distracted, intent on finding something. Thinking fast, Marius pulled the pin from the pipe bomb and rolled it towards Malefax. The grenade exploded, sending shrapnel flying. As the smoke cleared, Malefax emerged, bloodied, pochmarks singed through his robe, but seething with hate and anger. "You," he roared. "I knew you'd come. Where is it? Where is the holocron?" "Safely hidden from view," Marius retorted, causing the Deveronian's eyelids to twitch in rage. "I cannot allow you to find it." Marius dropped into a low combat stance, ready to face down his foe. He lunged forwards, catching Malefax off guard, and aimed a strike at the sword in his assailant's hand. His fist came down on Malefax's clenched hand, causing him to drop the sword. In one swift motion, seemingly unfazed by the attack, Malefax drew his pistol from his holster, pointing it towards Marius. "Nice try, Jedi," Malefax smirked. Marius went for another swipe, but Malefax dodged backwards and whirled around, firing a spray of blaster bolts at Marius. The bolts impacted on the wall of the temple archives, smashing view screens and databanks as they hit. Sparks and smoke filled Marius's vision as he attempted to get a bead on the Darksider. Breathing deeply, Marius cleared his mind, allowing the force to guide his hand. He dashed through the smoke, stooping for a moment to pick up the ancient Sith sword the Deveronian had been holding. He rose and slashed with the sword, slicing Malefax's head from his shoulders. The headless Sith's body dropped to its knees before toppling over to the floor. Marius let his arms fall loose, the sword still in his grasp as he panted. "My friend," Master Turin said, raising her head. Marius turned to see her lying on the ground nearby in the assembly hall, battered and bloody, but alive. "I was worried that my message would not reach you. had only moments when Malefax took me. I've never been happier to see you in all my life. She slowly struggled to her feet, clearly damaged by the ordeal, but still smiling. I think this could be a grand opportunity for you, to learn from this ordeal, and from this temple. I believe it has secrets yet to uncover. Then, the gatekeeper appeared. You are right. He extended his hand towards Marius. There is still one task I require your assistance with, young Jedi. We must cleanse the temple of this evil once and for all. Now, open your mind. The gatekeeper closed his eyes, and Marius did the same. Feel the energy around you. Yes, there is the taint of the dark side here, but underneath, deeper, we see the light rushing to meet it. Malefax's presence was strong in the dark side, but it is fleeting as he leaves this plane and becomes one with the Force again. This temple can return to its old power as a beacon of the light, but we must sweep away what dark power lingers. Allow yourself to become clear, peaceful, serene. Let these feelings wash away the darkness and expose the light beneath. As the words echoed around the assembly hall, Marius could sense the heavy feeling of Malefax's dark side presence lift. A deep sense of peace filled his mind. The sun broke through the clouds outside and engulfed the valley in a bright, warm glow. Animals returned to their dens, villagers to their homes, and balance was restored to the valley once more.